Hello, welcome to this video discussion. In this video, I shall be tackling about spelling and capitalization in technical writing. Now, we know that in the corporate world, written communication is of significance. This is one good way for us to communicate not only with our workmates or not only with our higher-ups, but also with other departments or companies in the professional world. Therefore, it is very important to make sure that all our written communication is accurate or correct. Hence, our command of the language, of the English language to be specific, comes very significant. In this case, we shall be considering important aspects in terms of grammar and mechanics, and two of these are spelling and capitalization, which are also very vital in channeling the correct information to our audience, the reading audience. So in this video, I shall be talking about some rules that we can use in terms of spelling and also some rules that we need to follow when capitalizing first letters of words. Aspects to be considered when technical or when writing technical documents are spelling, mechanics, and grammar. Now, we cannot deny the fact that these three integral elements are very important in written communication, specifically when we are writing technical documents. We know that technical documents by nature are formal types of documents. And so we need to make sure that our language is accurate and appropriate. So it is also very important to take into consideration these three major aspects: spelling, mechanics, and grammar. So when we talk about spelling, we know that spelling involves the right way of spelling the words. And when we talk about mechanics, we are talking about the different rules that we need to follow in terms of the use of punctuation marks. Included also in grammar are the various grammatical rules that we need to observe when writing our sentences or when writing our paragraphs to ensure that we are delivering correct messages towards our reading audience. So, I'd like to emphasize that spelling need not to be a mystery. That's according to Nadel, Langan, and Comodromos in 2009. Because the moment that we understand how important spelling is, that's the time that we also realize that spelling has become an integral element of any form of technical document. For reference, it is important to have an on-hand updated copy of dictionary. So that is why if you find it very difficult to spell words, then it would be very handy if you have a dictionary with you so that whenever you encounter difficulties or challenges in spelling words, you can immediately check the proper spelling. Now, if you use a word processor, there is also an automatic spell check program. And this one is very evident in the Microsoft Office, specifically the Microsoft Word, wherein you have this feature that could autocorrect misspellings in your write-ups. Another strategy to improve your ability of correctly spelling words is through keeping a personal inventory of the words you misspell. So in this case, it is also essential that you enlist all of those words that you commonly misspell and take time to review them so that you can internalize the correct spelling of these words. And the next time that you get to spell these words, you get them correctly already. And then, lastly, it is also vital to know about basic spelling rules to minimize spelling errors. Now, as professionals, or in your case, as future professionals, it is very important that you know how to correctly spell words in the English language because that is part of your vocabulary, and your vocabulary becomes so useful when you begin your travel or your journey in the professional world. So, let me discuss first some rules that we need to observe in terms of spelling. Okay? So, one good example for this is when I and E are adjacent. Oftentimes, we find this very difficult. We interchange sometimes I and E, E and I. And that's the common mistake that we have. So remember, we have words wherein I comes before E, such as in words achieve, peace, thief, and yield. Okay? But this rule does not apply to all words because we have some exceptions to this. Let's say the second column you have here, for those words wherein C precedes the I-E order. So we have ceiling. So if you notice, E comes I first. And then we have the word conceited, deceive, and receive. Same is true when the IE order or the EI is pronounced like, for example, in the vowel EI, or in the vowels EI in the word neighbor, so it's pronounced as A, and also in the word way. For example, we have the word beige, freight, rain, and there. So the order should be EI and not IE. Apart from this, the rule does not apply if the I and E are also in separate syllables. For example, in the word science or society. Now, if you listen carefully to it, there are actually two separate syllables where the IE order is located. For example, in the word science, science, science. We don't say science because that's another word. So in that case, the order should be IE. Same goes in another sample word such as society, society, society. So there are many syllables there, and the order is IE and not EI. It also does not apply to the following exceptions. For example, in the words caffeine, either or either, financier, foreign, invigos, leisure, neither, protein, seas, slate, species, and weird. Now, if you notice, EI order is also followed in this sample word. So you have to remember the correct spelling of these words. You also have doubling the final consonant as one of the major problems when it comes to spelling words. Now, this rule applies to words that satisfy the following conditions. First one, the word's last three letters must be consonant, vowel, and consonant. So if you have a word there, and then the last three letters have this order, consonant, vowel, and consonant, then you need to double the final consonant. Or second one, the word must be either one syllable, such as in the word plan, or accented on the final syllable, such as in the word control. Control. So if you notice, the stress is on the last syllable, which is the troll syllable, control. In such cases, double the final consonant before adding an ending that begins with a vowel, such as these suffixes, ed, er, al, and ing. For example, in the word plan, if you will not double the final consonant of this word and then suffix or affix it with the suffix ed, then the word will have to be read as planed and not planned. So in this case, you need to double the last letter, which is N, so that it will be read as planned. Okay? Same goes with the word refer. We have referral, control, controller, begin, beginning. Okay? I hope you get this rule. However, you should not double the final consonant in the following cases. First one, when words end in a silent E, such as in the word pave. Okay? You just have to affix it with the suffix D to make its past tense form. And then mope, affix it with the ing suffix to make it moping, progressive form. Words ending in two vowels in a consonant or in two consonants, for example, in the word appear, appearance, talk, talking. Okay? Again, words ending in two vowels and a consonant or in two consonants. For example, here, you can see that in the word appear, there are two vowels already, EA, and then followed by a consonant. So there's no need for you to double the last letter here if this is the order. Or it could also be like this, wherein the I is also here, A is followed by double consonants or two consonants, or the word ends with two consonants, so you just have to add the affix without doubling the last word. Words whose accent is not on the final syllable. For example, in the word develop, develop. So the stress is on the second syllable, develop, developing, developing. So you just have to add ing and no final letter has to be doubled. Words that no longer are accented on the final syllable when the ending is added. For example, refer, reference, refer, reference. So words that no longer are accented on the final syllable. So when you add the suffix to the word, and then when you read it, the accent is no longer found on the last or the final syllable, then there's no need for you to double the consonant, the final consonant. Refer, refer. So if you listen carefully to it, the stress is on the last syllable or the final syllable, refer. But when you affix it with the suffix ence and becomes reference, listen carefully, reference. So the stress is already on the first syllable, reference. That means you don't have to double the final consonant, which is R, just to get the correct spelling. So it has to be as is. Same goes with prefer, preferable. Prefer, preferable. An exception to this word is the word questionnaire. Questionnaire, okay? Originally, it's question, right? Question, questionnaire. So when you suffix it, it's still the same. Okay? But this one is an exception. Dropping the final silent E. For a word that ends in a silent E, you have to drop the E before adding an ending that begins with a vowel. For example, in the word cope, okay? Cope. So you have to drop E and then replace it with the ing. Coping. Cute, cutest. Okay, in this case, we did not necessarily drop the E because the suffix is already est and not st. So we just added est or st rather. And then we have receive, receivable, guide, guidance. But keep the E before an ending beginning with a consonant. Okay? So if it's beginning with a consonant in the ending part, so for example, in the word sincere, okay? Sincerely. So if you notice, R is the letter that comes before E. Definite, T, is the letter before E. So we say definitely, base, basement, 90, or 990. Okay, I hope you get this. Exceptions also include the following. For example, in words truly, awful, argument, dying, and singeing. Okay, to avoid confusion with dying and singing. These are totally different. Changeable, courageous, manageable, noticeable, and similar words where the final E is needed to keep the sound of the G or C soft. Okay, that explains why. Now, adding to words that end in Y. For most words ending in Y, change Y to IE before adding an S. For example, we know this. You say city, change Y to I, and then add ES, series, studies, studies, story, and stories. Change the Y to I before all other endings except the ING. For example, copy, copies, cry, cries, study, studies. The Y remains when the ending is ing. For example, copying, crying, studying. So you have to remember that one. The Y also stays when it is preceded by a vowel. For example, in the word delay. If you notice, Y is preceded with letter A. So when you affix it with different suffixes such as S, ed, and ing, it's still as S. You say delays, delayed, delaying. Next one is words ending in F and FE. Words ending in F and FE normally change to VES in the plural. For example, we know this is elementary, right? Leaf, leaves, knife, knives, life, lives, wife, and wives. An exception is the word roof, where whose plural simply adds an S. So you say roofs. Common spelling errors also include homonyms. Okay, homonyms are words that sound alike but have different spellings and meaning. Here are a few of the most troublesome. For example, we oftentimes interchange the spelling for accept and exempt, affect and effect, whose and whose with apostrophe S, complement, compliment, new, lose, lose, it's with an apostrophe S, there, there. Okay, 3 different lexical items with 3 different functions. To, your, and principal. So apart from spelling, it is also vital to know certain rules, mechanical rules when it comes to capitalization. So capitals are used, first one, to mark a beginning of a sentence. We know this elementary fact. Second, to signal a proper noun or adjective. Now, the following principles from Aquino, Calang, Bas, and Capili in 2010 describe the most common uses of capital letters. For example, in rule number 1, abbreviations of government agencies, military units, and corporate names are usually capitalized. We know that. For example, NBI, PNP, PAGCOR, and ABS-CBN. Now, all of these abbreviations mean something. Okay, for example, PNP stands for Philippine National Police. NBI stands for National Bureau Investigation. Okay? And then, rule number 2, abbreviations of academic degrees and professional ratings may be all capitalized and lowercase depending on the word. For example, in the word PE, which is a subject, physical education. In the word PhD, okay, which stands for Doctor of Philosophy. Now, if you notice, we do not capitalize the H for the P here, okay, because if you spell this one out, it is philosophy. And the word philosophy does not start with H, but rather P. CPA, and then we also have MBA, Master in Business Administration, and DBA, Doctor of Business Administration. The first word in a sentence of a sentence fragment or of a complete sentence enclosed in parentheses is also capitalized. For example, the community outreach was pushed through. So that's the first word of a sentence. So T is capitalized. Yes, I can make it. Okay. Will you meet me? Total destruction. Nothing succeeds. If you notice, these are two sentence fragments. Okay. They are separated with a period. But since they express a complete thought, although the fact that this one is just a sentence fragment, we may capitalize the first letters of their first words. However, the first word of a parenthetical phrase or sentence enclosed by parentheses and occurring within another sentence is actually lowercase. For example, the conference started and then you would like to insert another sentence here, but just for emphasis purposes. The conference started, the agenda was not revealed. So if you notice, since this one is another sentence, then even enclosed in parentheses, we still capitalize this one. Unlike with sentence B, she studied history under Dr. Amoroso. She wrote the text at the university. So this one is just, if it's spoken communication, it's like an ad-lib, okay? But this one is just an insertion here, and it does not necessarily contribute to the meaning of the sentence. So you don't have to capitalize the first letter because anyway, this is not a complete sentence or it does not express a complete thought. Now, the first word of a direct quotation is capitalized, but a stiff direct quotation tightly bound to the rest of a sentence is lowercase at the beginning of its continued segment or segments, and the first word of a quotation forming a complete sentence that is tightly bound to the main sentence is usually lowercase. For example, in sentence A, he asked, "How can I serve you?" Now, you have to remember that if you enclose direct quotation or statements, verbatim statements, inside quotation marks, then you have to add comma first after the verb and then capitalize the first letter of the expression. Okay? If you can see here, H for how here is capitalized because this is a complete expression. Second one, the president denied the story. The paper reports and feels the media have acted irresponsibly. Now, if you look at this one very carefully, there is actually something that comes or exists between these two verbatim statements. In short, this divides the one long statement here to two parts. The president denied the story and feels the media have acted irresponsibly. So in this case, even if there is a new citation here, but this is actually still a connection of the previous one. So you may not capitalize the first letter of the second half. Third one, the paper goes on to say that the president feels the media are irresponsible. Okay? So in this case, if you notice, we did not capitalize this one because we have the word that, which could be just a continuation of the preceding sentence or the preceding group of words. Okay? Rule number 5. The first word of a direct question within a sentence or of a series of questions within a sentence may be capitalized. For example, the question is this: exactly what strategies should accountants make? How much re-engineering should the company undertake? How much would it cost? If you notice, there is a series of 3 questions in this sentence alone. And these are introduced by the punctuation mark colon. In writing this, you don't have to write it as if it appears to be one sentence only. So you may still have the 3 separate sentences here, provided that you capitalize the first letter of the first word of each of the sentences. Okay, same as how we wrote it on the screen. Rule number 6. The first word following a colon may be lowercase or capitalized if it introduces a complete sentence. While the former is the more usual styling, the latter is common, especially when the sentence introduced by the colon is fairly lengthy and distinctly separate from the preceding clause. For example, in the sentence, the advantage of globalization is clear. It allows free trade. Now, if you notice this one, the second group of words here is separated from the preceding one with the use of the punctuation colon. Okay? And then, if you compare it or contrast it with the second sentence, the banking situation is critical. This bank cannot regain the losses if they do not encourage mergers and buy-ins, especially foreign buy-ins. Now, let's go back to the rule. The first word following a colon may be lowercase or capitalized if it introduces a complete sentence. If you look at this one, okay, it already expresses a complete sentence or complete thought. So we did not capitalize it, or we may still capitalize it. Or while the former is the more usual styling, the latter is common, especially when the sentence introduced by colon is fairly lengthy. So If you believe that the next one is very long, for example, in this case, this one appears to be a complete sentence already, and then you have the colon here, you will have to capitalize this one. But if it's as brief as this, it may not be capitalized anyway. Okay? Rule number 7. The first words of run-in or block enumerations that form complete sentences are capitalized, as are the first words of phrasal lists and enumerations blocked beneath running text. However, phrasal enumerations that run in with the introductory text are lowercase. For example, we have here, do the following tasks. Okay? If you notice, it's like that. Okay? But we can actually get rid of the period here. Okay? And then these are the agenda. So if you notice, this one is not numbered. So capital letter still. And then the next one, hindi na, or it's not capitalized anymore. And then we have on the agenda will be one, call to order. So you don't have to capitalize the first letter of the first word just because it's enumerated or presented this way. It may still be written this way though. Okay? Rule number 8. The first letter of the first word in an outline heading is capitalized. For example, manager's tasks, production responsibilities, and then we have A and B under 2. Okay, so if you notice, the first letters of the first words of these two have been capitalized. Okay? Rule number 9. The first letter of the first word in a salutation and a complementary subject, complementary clause is capitalized, as is the first letter of each main word following subject and 2 headings as in memoranda. Now, I want you to carefully remember this one because this is the common mistake that we commit when writing our letters, business or corporate letters. Dear Luz, if you notice, you need to have capitalized for letter for D, dear and Luz. My dear Dr. Lim, okay, since you have already here the first letter and the name, you don't have to capitalize this anymore. 2, for example, this is part of the heading of a memorandum. All department managers. So capitalize the first letters of the first words. Sincerely yours, you don't have to capitalize the Y for yours or whatever it will be, or whatever the complementary clause, whatever complementary clause is used. So you don't have to capitalize this one. Same goes with very truly yours, and same goes with the subject, same as with the 2 heading. Okay, you just have to capitalize the first letters of the words. Okay? It was actually an information overload given that I have discussed rules for spelling and capitalization. But don't worry, because this is just a refresher. This is just for you to remind yourselves that even how good we are in terms of the use of the English language, we can still encounter or experience challenges or difficulties in terms of grammar, mechanics, and spelling. All we have to do is to continually learn. So if you have questions, I am open to answering them. Please post them in the open forum. Thank you very much for watching this video discussion.